Backrack. And finally for today, we have Mr. Muse. Mr. Muse, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you. So I wanted to pick up on a question that my colleague, Mr. Stroll, had from the minister at the end, and of course the time ran out, but it was about the increase, of course, in electrification of vehicles, and obviously we're seeing that uptick. In fact, in my home province of Ontario, there was an announcement today by the provincial government with regard to that. But the comment was made about whether, or the question was asked about whether the grid could sustain that, and you know, while I realize that that's a matter of provincial jurisdiction, and the minister referred to some federal contribution towards helping the provinces do that. I mean, certainly, you know, as Transport Canada and as the federal government is looking to increase the use of and the production and use of electric vehicles across Canada, I mean, there's an interest in whether there's going to be a sufficient capacity on the grid to sustain that. So I just wanted to know what your thoughts would be on that.
Very good question. The minister indicated there's sort of two parts to it. There's actually having the gas up or the recharge facilities, which he answered. There's a lot of work in terms of making sure those are in place. So that part of the en route question is covered. There is, as part of the shift towards electric vehicles and their charging requirements, either at home, at work, or on the road, is part of a changing dynamic around the electricity grid, the growing use of renewables and generation as well. So the grid, there's a lot of change dynamics on the grid. Transport Canada works very closely with Natural Resources Canada on these issues of grid readiness for the evolution of not just zero-emission vehicles on the road, but you know, on marine ports, et cetera. And there's a lot of work that's happening between Natural Resources Canada and their provincial energy counterparts on grid readiness for really the broader shift to net zero 2050. Cars are part of it, but there's also the renewables. So it's a big issue, a lot of work being done, and it needs to land well.
Is enough being done? Because I mean, $250 million, frankly, is a drop in the bucket, right? So, and I hear you with regard to, you know, not just the cars, but the marine sector and other sectors too. So, I mean, you know, is enough being done, and what's being done to accelerate that?
There is a lot of work being done, and there are a lot of projects. You know, Atlantic Loop out east, Northwest Grid. There's a lot of projects to evolve the grid and the connections. Most of these are under provincial jurisdiction, but there's a lot of federal provincial discussion, and there's investment partnerships to ensure we're on a pathway of readiness, and it's an area that's going to require constant work in the years to come. Are we on a path to solve it? I think my sense in talking to my colleagues at Natural Resources Canada and in the provinces, the discussions are there and the work is there, but it has to continue.
Switching to the high-frequency rail, and just, you know, a question, and so just help me understand the thinking behind a subsidiary of Via Rail, rather than, did we not have the expertise within Via to do this, or why sort of the structure that was put forward, and whether that's, you know, efficient and gives the high-frequency rail opportunities to succeed?
The thinking, I would say first and foremost, there's Via's a first-class operator of a rail system, and it has expertise that is essential to the success of the project. But there is a lot of expertise, a lot of skill, a lot of capacity that we need to build and develop in order to properly manage this complex project. It's not currently in Via, it's not currently in the Government of Canada, and so we're building a dedicated corporation as a project office to assemble that skill and have that entity focused on one thing, the development and delivery of that project. And the project will be done in partnership with Via, but we think we need a very purposeful development of that project capacity. And part of what drives us is that we have been looking systemically at the hard lessons of other projects, and you can see them now in the Ottawa LRT and the report that's come out. So we're studying that with great interest and ensuring that we're establishing a pathway that avoids the pretty terrible potholes that some others have found themselves in.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muse, and thank you, Mr.